This Sunday, we continue our study in the book of Ephesians, and we're going to look at chapter 2, starting at verse 11. But before we do that, I want to go back to verses 8, 9, and 10 and talk about two things that were left on the desk and not in last week's sermon. The first pertains to the point that we were making that not only is grace a free gift of God, but the faith to believe is a free gift of God as well. And neither of them are things that we can claim any credit for, either grace or the faith that we exercise to believe. And I got that by looking at verse 8, where it says that it is by grace you have been saved through faith, and this is not your own doing, it is the gift of God, not a result of works. And the question really is when Paul says that this is not your own doing, it is the gift of God. What is the this referring to? It's a pronoun, and what's the antecedent in sort of language arts terms? Is it faith? Is it grace? Now, faith is the closer noun to the word this. And so if you had to pick one or the two, you might actually pick faith and not grace. But there's an interesting way that the Greek language is sometimes structured that gives us a clue that it's referring not just to faith or grace, but to both of them. This is what I mean, right? The this, where it says, and this is not your own doing, that this is a neuter pronoun, while grace and faith are both feminine nouns. Now, in Greek, like in Latin, or in many other kind of European languages, words have, nouns have gender, and grace and faith are both feminine nouns. And the pronoun for this is a neuter pronoun. Well, in Greek, when there isn't a one-to-one agreement between the gender of a pronoun and the multiple nouns to which it refers, then the common way of understanding that's a common way of letting the reader know that the pronoun refers not just to one or to the other, but to the totality of the idea. In other words, this is the important takeaway. Both grace and faith, salvation in all respects, is not from ourselves. It's the gift of God. That's the one thing I wanted to tell you about. I told you that it came from a look at the Greek, that point, and so I wanted to make it. The other one is that what we were talking about how if God's grace is operating in your life, then not only does it result in works that you do, but works ultimately that you want to do, a desire to do good works. And here I wanted to share a quote from Martin Luther that I didn't have time to read, but Luther starts off by describing the grace of God like this. He says, "Although I am an unworthy and condemned man, my God has given me in Christ all the riches of righteousness and salvation without any merit on my part, out of pure, free mercy, so that from now on I need nothing except faith which believes that it is true." Okay? Then he continues and he says, if it is true then, right? If what God has given me freely, not as a result of any merit on my part, if this is now free mercy that has been shown to me, he says, why should I not therefore freely, joyfully, with all my heart, and with an eager will, do all things which I know are pleasing to such a Father who has overwhelmed me with his inestimable riches? I will therefore give myself as Christ to my neighbor, as Christ offered himself to me. I will do nothing in this life except which I see is necessary, profitable, and salutary to my neighbor, since through faith I have an abundance of all good things in Christ. Do you see what he's saying? He's saying that because God has freely and joyfully given me salvation, then I should freely, joyfully, and with all my heart and with an eager will do that which I know is pleasing to him. Don't just do it, but do it freely, joyfully, with all your heart and with an eager will. And when you struggle with that, go back to the reminder that you are acting to your neighbor in loving someone else in the same way that Christ has loved you. I will offer myself as a Christ to my neighbor, as Christ offered himself to me. That's the basis by which we love other people and obey God's commands, because Christ has obeyed first on our behalf. And we then offer ourselves to others as Christ offered himself to us. Look forward to seeing you on Sunday as we continue our study in Ephesians chapter 2. Have a great rest of your week.